What up, WInDaily family? It is week 12. Good morning to everybody. I believe David Jones is in New York today, so we got a special guest with us, Andrew Erickson. Andrew, welcome aboard to the live stream. What's going on, man?
Dude, what's up, Nick? Man, I'm ready to get going, ready to win some money. Week 12, let's go. Let's bring it.
All right, so we will get right into it today. I think the first game we had to talk about is Denver and Buffalo, but I guess I gotta mute this real quick. Any initial thoughts on the slate before we kick it off? You like the slate? Any dislikes? I think it's a pretty small player pool for me, and I usually like weeks like that.
Yeah,
But what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's a lot of it's not great. Usually we get some running back that kind of opens up a lot of value, towards, someone's out an injury. So obviously the injury reports, haven't been finalized yet. But for the most part, you're paying up at the running back position. There's not many great, confident plays, at lower running back. And then we've got a bunch of, chalky wide receivers, expensive receivers. So it's going to be a matter of, okay, am I going to eat the chalk with these big ass wide receivers, or where am I going to pay down? So it'll be interesting.
100% agreed. Yeah, it doesn't seem like we have that Brian Hill this week. Maybe Miles Sanders. It sounds like that Jordan Howard's going to be out today. It's not confirmed, but the first thing I saw this morning on Twitter is that he's not expected to play. So maybe it's Miles Sanders chalk week again. He was kind of there last week, but I don't see anything too crazy. It's not going to be like the 40% Brian Hills like we got last week. So truthfully, I'm excited for that because I think you can really build your lineups a lot of different ways here. So let's get right to it. The first game, hopefully we don't have to talk about too long, is Denver at Buffalo. Buffalo's a 4-point favorite, and we got a total of 37.5. That is incredibly low. Doesn't seem like there's any notable injuries, but what are your thoughts on this one? Who's in play for you?
Yeah, so I think looking at the quarterback position, I know Josh Allen is a Daniel Jones favorite. I know that he loves him as a guy, and he was on him last week in the matchup against Miami. And I think that he's a guy that you could potentially go back to in GPPs because of the fact that he has rushing upside. A lot of the Lamar Jacksons, Kyler Murray's, those guys aren't on the slate this week. So we don't have that guy that really can maximize upside with rushing. And I looked at Josh Allen's rushing numbers, and he's running the ball like crazy. Since becoming the starter last year, he has 15 rushing touchdowns. That's insane. So he has upside in a GPP that I like. And then going for guys on the Broncos side, Philip Lindsay, 5,200. He's really I know we talked about the cheap running backs, but he's probably the most confident cheap running back I would play this week because he saw an increased workload last week, increase in snaps. He's 5,200. We know he can be a pass catching back. And the Bills have been absolutely terrible against the run this year. They've allowed the 8th most fantasy points to running backs over the past 4 weeks. So Philip Lindsay is a guy that I think that is in a really good spot.
Absolutely. So the thing I like here, I love Philip Lindsay. He's in my cash article. I don't know if he's going to make my cash line because I may just have to eat the Miles Sanders chalk to kind of hedge myself that way. But I do have a ton of Lindsay in all my GPP lineups, it looks like. I'm using a lot of Broncos D, so I'm not in on Josh Allen this week. I'm maybe in an MME format. I'll definitely use him because, like you said, he could run for 2 touchdowns just as much as Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry could today. He just does it every week, it seems like, so he's got to have some tournament appeal there. But I really don't want anything to do with this game other than Philip Lindsay. The Broncos defense, simply due to price on DraftKings, are 2,400. I see myself having a lot of them just because that's kind of how the build's going, and I've never been a guy to pay up for defense, really. And I want nothing to do with John Brown. I think he could get break a deep one or something like that with Josh Allen, but Chris Harris is going to shadow him, and that's a matchup I always respect and try to avoid. So there's really nobody on the Buffalo side at all that I'm interested in, but I do like Tim Patrick for the Broncos at absolute min price. He's $3K on DraftKings. He is going to make my cash lineup. I wouldn't call him, put him in my sexy 6, if you will, just because I don't think there's anything sexy about the guy right now. It's just a bottom of the barrel play. He's going to see a lot of Levi Wallace, and I think that that's a matchup that he could win often on this game. And I think he'll go with the slot a little bit too and take on Teron Johnson. So I like Tim Patrick's chances at getting 9+ points today. So that's 3x value for me on DraftKings. So he'll be in my cash lineup.
Yeah, Philip Lindsay actually came out this week and said that Tim Patrick is a dog. So I'm obviously going to play dog. I'm putting dogs in my cash lineup. So yeah, couldn't agree more with Tim Patrick. Love to call it 3K. Does have that questionable tag next to his name on DraftKings.
He's
So I think
playing.
that, yeah.
The beat reported for Denver said he's in.
So don't worry about that. Maybe that'll get people off of him. Not that I'm necessarily looking at him in GPPs, but again, hey, if people aren't going to play the optimal plays in cash, like whatever, I'll just take their money. Like that's no big deal to me. So yeah, I love Tim Patrick, and like you said, he's got the key favorable matchup, and Tre'Davious White's probably going to be covering Cortland Sutton most of the time. So obviously more favorable for Tim Patrick.
All right, let's hit a couple questions here because that is enough about that disgusting game in Buffalo. All right, any questions? So who are we looking for value from Mud Dog? Sanders, David Montgomery, or Devin Singletary? I would say in cash, you definitely want to use Sanders because he's going to be so high owned. If he goes off and you don't have him in cash, that kind of separates yourself from the winning part of the field there. So you definitely got to use him in cash in a tournament. I have no problem with David Montgomery. What are your thoughts on that question there, Andrew? Or do you like Devin Singletary at all?
Yeah, no, not a huge fan of Devin Singletary. Like we mentioned before, like Josh Allen has a strong equity in taking away touchdowns. So like Singletary, you don't even know if he's going to get the goal line work. And it's just like in a GPP, you need running backs that are going to score touchdowns. So Devin Singletary, definitely not. So I agree with you there with Sanders and Montgomery.
Yep. All right. That's pretty much it. Is Barkley a good play? Absolutely. We'll get into that game. All right. What is the next game? Another gross one. I started off with all the nasty ones. We just get those out of the way and forget about them. We got Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is only a 6.5-point dog. Another whopping total of 38 points. Some injuries here. We all know James Conner's out. Get him out of your lineups, season-long DFS, whatever. If you built him earlier this week, he's out. Juju, same with him. Auden Tate, I believe, is out. That's not confirmed yet, but I don't see how he plays. He got lit up last week. Hopefully he's okay. That was kind of a scary hit there in Oakland. I don't see how he plays. Any other injuries I'm missing there? It looks like Benny Snell is back in. I know I like Trey Edmonds a little bit on Monday. He's out of my player pool now. If they're going to use Jalen Samuels and Benny Snell, I want nothing to do with a three-headed monster. So I don't think Edmonds will play. Maybe a couple goal line carries. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so it's definitely ugly. I really honestly, looking for value here in this game. There are two guys, or two plays I would say I like the most. So the Bengals defense coming in at the sweet price of 2,100 on DraftKings. I'm playing the Bengals defense. I don't really care how bad they are. We saw Mason Rudolph play quarterback last week, and he is absolutely terrible, Mason Rudolph. And the thing I like is, so with him, he has been atrocious, especially on the road. So that's where the Steelers' offensive line has struggled. The Steelers are missing their center due to the fact of the whole fallout with the suspensions and all of that stuff. So they're missing their starting center. So I don't like that from a fact of the run game for the Steelers. Just like the fact the Bengals can't literally stop anybody. But, I mean, the Bengals kept it close with the Oakland Raiders last week, who are a team that people are projecting to be a playoff team. So I like the Bengals defense. I think that you can, if you can't afford the Broncos, who I think is also a good play, I think you can still pay down at Bengals. That's kind of where I'd feel the most comfortable paying down with the defense. So I like the Bengals. And then you have my other favorite player on the Steelers side with all the injuries is Vance McDonald, tight end. Tight end is super gross this week. Basically, there's all the good tight ends are basically either on bye weeks or are playing in primetime games. So you can't really play anyone outside of Zach Ertz and Waller. So if you're looking to pay down at tight end, I like Vance McDonald. He should see some more targets with the other guys all injured and out of the lineup. He's $3,500 on DraftKings. The Bengals are not good against tight ends over the last 4 weeks. They've ranked worst versus the tight end position. McDonald has 7 targets, 7, 7, 7 in his last 3 games. That's jackpot, baby. Vance McDonald, I really like in this spot at 3,500. And we know he's athletic. He can catch it. He can break a tackle, and, he can take something to the house. So it's not like a guy you need to rely on. Oh, he just has to catch a touchdown. He has yards after the catch ability. And with no Juju, he should see some more targets his way.
100% agreed. Vance is locked into my cash game lineup. I would prefer to use Ertz today, but I just can't afford him if I'm going to go running back heavy. when you get that with my sexy six in a bit here. But yeah, this game, again, pretty gross. I don't want to talk about Vance McDonald. You nailed it on the head there. He's at me and tight ends this week. It is Zach Ertz or Vance McDonald for me, and then maybe a couple sprinkles of some other guys. We'll get to them as we get to their games. But what are your thoughts on like Jalen Samuels? So Cincinnati's terrible against running backs. We all know that. They give up a ton of catches, the pass catching backs. The thing to me here, like I love Jalen Samuels at first, but then just taking a look at the field, 7,200 for a guy that's not guaranteed goal line work is kind of sketchy to me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's the exact scenario. Like if Jalen it's funny because we get spoiled because a couple of weeks ago we were playing Jalen Samuels at like 4K or whatever where it's at. And it's like, oh yeah, everyone's gonna play him like 70% ownership. So now the fact that they've kind of priced him like more in line of like accuracy, the fact
He's
that
damn near Saquon Barkley on DraftKings price wise.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why you can't like. It's such a the only reason he's in a good spot, so that's always a good reason to pay up for him maybe in a GPP because he catches the ball a lot. And in DraftKings is PPR. So like outside of a GPP, I can't because he's going to be super low owned. But the fact of the matter is he's low owned because of salary and not because of matchup. He could potentially, him having a good game is not out of the realm of possibilities. Just a matter of, okay, well, you're paying 7,200 for a guy that may not score a touchdown, but could have 10 catches.
Yep, 100% agreed. Any pass catching interest for the Steelers? You like James Washington now that he seems to be the head honcho? I think Deontay Johnson's playing. I don't know how he's playing. The guy was bleeding from the ears last week.
Yeah, I actually don't. I think James Washington's like kind of dust. Honestly, like he's not very good. And Mason Rudolph, the thing is, people are buying into the accolade of, like they went to college together, yada yada yada. But like, that doesn't like Deontay Johnson is like a better wide receiver than James Washington. So too. Deontay Johnson is significantly better. Mason Rudolph ranks with PFF rankings, he is like ranking dead last in deep ball completion, which is like the only incentive you have of playing a James Washington. So I think Washington will probably be higher owned due to the fact that, he went to college with Mason Rudolph. Like, yeah, it's like
it's been the story all year.
Yeah, and he's like sucked.
I love that narrative. Everybody uses that.
He sucked all year. Like, I'm gonna play the better guy who is Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I just personally I don't have any interest in really anybody besides I love the Pittsburgh defense. I don't know how much I'll be able to afford them, but I will force them into some of them. And then Cincinnati, I'm cool if that's your punt for defense. The rest of your lineup better be awesome because I don't see them doing a whole lot, but I also don't see them going negative. So they're definitely in play. They're probably going to be the chalkiest defense on DraftKings just because 2.1K allows you to do so much else with your lineup. And that's personally the way I like to go to, is just not worry about defense until the rest of your lineup gets your thumbs up, if you will. Anything on the Bengals side? Is there, Joe Mixon has been getting the ball like crazy. I liked him a lot last week and the week before that a little bit. I think I'm going to be off him, but he's got a really nice price and no one's playing him. What do you think about Joe Mixon?
Yeah, I think he's fine. I just don't know like how many points they're going to be scored in this game. Like you said, the over-under is at 38. And there are so many other running back plays that I just like more. Like I don't mind paying up, and that's where I preferably like to pay up is at the running back position anyway. So like Joe Mixon's not someone that I'm really targeting. But I would say with the Bengals, Tyler Boyd, $5,000, squeaky wheel gets the grease. He was complaining about not getting enough targets. The matchup's obviously tough, but if there's no Auden Tate, I do think that Tyler Boyd is probably going to get peppered with targets. So I do like him.
Yeah, they'll force feed him.
Yeah,
I love that price. That was the next guy I was going to bring up. Tyler Boyd, I think he's definitely in play. I don't know if he's your ceiling type of player, but if your build's looking like you need a mid-price or I guess a pretty low-price guy that's going to get you 12 to 15 points, I definitely think Boyd's there for you today. All right, some questions here. Which stack do you like better? Matty Ice, Ridley, Hill, or Winston Evans running back with Ridley? I like the Winston Evans running back with Ridley. I definitely want a little bit of Brian Hill today, and we'll talk about that game in a little bit here, Chris. But I don't see a game script where Winston doesn't throw the ball 50 times today. And even if he throws 4 picks, he still throws for 300-something yards. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Winston has like a great track record against the Falcons. Like his last 5 games, he's thrown for like at least 3 touchdowns in every single game. Not like, oh, he averages 3 touchdowns. Like he's literally thrown for 3 touchdowns at least in every single game the last 5 times he's played the Falcons. So yeah, I definitely prefer Winston.
Yeah, Brian Hill, I don't know how much sense he makes with a Matt Ryan stack, unless you think that they're going to score 40 points, which is entirely possible today. It's just they don't really use Brian Hill like they were using Freeman in the passing game. So to me, that's a little bit counterproductive. Unless you just think this offense goes off in general, then sure, use Matt Ryan, Ridley, Julio, and Hill, whatever. If that's your game script, it's very possible. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. I personally won't do that, but I'm only going to use Brian Hill in MME if I do that today, but I don't know. It's such a great spot to go back to him when everybody played him last week, but I think he's still going to be somewhat popular today just because he's so cheap. And if that offense has an implied total of like 28 points, there's a great chance that Brian Hill does score today. It's like, but maybe Allison or whatever gets the goal and carries. That's a David Jones question. He knows the Falcons better than anybody. So I'd go there, but I just like the Winston Evans side more because I know that Evans is going to get work all day long.
Yeah, and one thing too, I will note, I do kind of just looking at I know we're kind of skipping ahead to because obviously we want to talk Bucks Falcons because that's actually a good game. Yeah. I actually prefer Chris Godwin over Evans just straight up.
For sure. Yeah. No, I like them both too. It's just Evans was in that question. Yeah. I mean, you could use Winston, Evans, and Godwin, then run back with Ridley or something like that. So get a little bit cheaper. All right. Next question from Chris again. Would you consider fading CMC today in cash and or GPP? I don't want to say yes, but I'm going to say yes because I'm paying up for wide receivers, and I think Kamara's just fine. That's who I like more than – I mean, the whole field likes Kamara more than McCaffrey. It's a price thing, but McCaffrey at 15% ownership, I'm never going to tell you not to play that. But in cash, I don't think you need it. If you make sure that you get – let's say this. If you do fade him, make sure the rest of your lineup is locked and loaded with guys that are going to get, 6+ catches at the receiver spot. So probably everybody included in Tampa Bay, Atlanta. And then make sure you have a Kamara in that lineup. And then, I don't know, maybe a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley, someone is going to be on the field a ton. Maybe Nick Chubb if you could afford him in that lineup. I don't know. But yes, I definitely think you could fade McCaffrey. I'm never going to tell someone to do it, but for cash, I don't think you need to pay up that much today. I didn't do it last week when I cashed, and I didn't do it the week before when he was in Green Bay and I hit cash games. It's fine. I'm not going to pay $10K for a running back in cash.
Yeah, I think you can go either way. Something that I've been doing this season is I've actually been fading Michael Thomas pretty hard. I haven't played him once in cash, and I've been cashing consistently. Whether that's I'm just getting lucky or not, I don't know. But I always play McCaffrey in cash. I mean, the dude scored 30 points last week, and he didn't even score a touchdown. I mean, that's hard to beat. So I personally am not going to be fading McCaffrey in cash, but I think in GPPs, I think that's totally fine. I think that you get better value looking at preferring a guy like Kamara instead of McCaffrey, or even looking at someone like Michael Thomas, who, is going to be probably lower owned than usual because of the, some of these better receivers in kind of more better spots. You have Odell Beckham's at 7K, and then Julio Jones, who's super chalk. He's at 8K. So it's oh, am I going to pay $1,300 more to play up for Michael Thomas when I could just play Julio at 8,000 when Julio has this dream spot matchup? So I'm going to be playing him in cash, McCaffrey, but I think you don't need to play him in GPPs. I think that he's an easy fade in GPPs.
Yeah, but you got to take a stand somewhere. All right. One more question. Do you like the Brown stack? That's our next game. We'll get into that. And then 2 best stud receivers this week on FanDuel. I believe he was asking. You got an answer to that, Andrew, or no? Otherwise, I'll pull that up real quick.
You can pull that up.
All right. And then kick us off here with Miami at Cleveland. Cleveland an 11-point favorite, over under a 45.5. We finally see the 40s.
Yes, we do. So, I mean, this game has to be a get-right game for the Cleveland Browns. There's obviously a lot of injuries in terms of the Browns' defense. They're missing literally all their defensive linemen. So that's why I think this game has a good shot of getting at the over. We've seen Fitzpatrick being able to sling the ball around and keep games competitive with the Dolphins. So I like the fact that this game could be competitive and that it's not going to just be a blowout by the Browns. But I mean, it's really hard to get away from a lot of these Browns guys, especially Baker Mayfield at 5,900. He's coming in at a good price, and he's been playing better lately anyway. And he's at home where he's a better game split. So Baker Mayfield, I think, is in play. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. It's just interesting how Landry is cheaper than Beckham, despite the fact that Landry's been better all season, essentially. So I think Landry's actually probably a better like leverage play than Beckham, because I think people are just going to pay up for Beckham because they're like, oh, this is going to be the week that he breaks out. But Landry's been the guy that's been scoring the touchdowns and been kind of the more productive receiver. So I think getting away from some Beckham ownership is just by playing Landry. I think you can probably play in his Browns stack. You can probably play both of them. And in a Browns passing attack, I think that Kareem Hunt and Baker Mayfield combined is really interesting because Kareem Hunt's getting all the pass catch work. And if the Browns get up really big in this game, you could see Hunt getting more carries in this game.
For sure. All right. I do think it's an Odell Beckham blow-up week. I just don't see a scenario where he doesn't blow up Nick Needham, who's going to be shadowing him, I guess. They're not just going to switch off. He's going to shadow, which is interesting. But this spread is a little crazy to me. I don't see how Cleveland should be an 11-point favorite, so I guess I'm saying take Miami. But Olivier Vernon's out. Myles Garrett's obviously out. We know that. And then Ogunjobi's out. So that's 3 defensive linemen who I guess are for sure their best pass rushers. So I like the Miami side on this game too, and I like this game to go over. I think it's just going to be I don't know. Is anybody playing Miami? I really like Fitzpatrick here. He's going to be low owned. And then Parker, his price just doesn't rise. I know people think that Denzel Ward's really solid, but he probably won't shadow Parker. Greedy Williams is good too. But if they don't have a pass rush, Parker should have all day to run his routes, and he's going to beat cornerbacks. So I like him a lot, and I like Gesicki, and I guess I like Allen Hurns a little bit. If you had to punt, Allen Hurns is going to be in there with my Tim Patrick conversations there. But I think this game kind of shoots out a little bit. I love Chubb. I'm undecided how I feel about Hunt. I wish his price would have been like 4,500 or something like that, but instead it's 56. But I guess if I like this game to shoot out, you could definitely use Hunt too. It's pretty cheap salary, and you could definitely stack him with Baker for sure. But I love Odell Beckham this week, 100%. Yeah, I'm going to have a ton of him.
Yeah, I do think Beckham is a good play, but I do think that Landry is also a good play as well. I mean, you got the revenge game narrative. Landry's going facing his old team against the Dolphins. So I just don't think you should overlook Landry and just be like, oh, well, I'll just pay for Beckham. I think that they're honestly both really, really good plays. And then you mentioned Allen Hurns. Allen Hurns is not in a bad spot. He's basically taken over as the Preston Williams number 2 receiver. So he's in the last 2 weeks, Allen Hurns has played in over 90% of the snaps. So he's kind of taken over that Preston Williams role. And Preston Williams was like putting up solid numbers. Whether you think that, Williams is so much better than Hurns, that's up to you. Not necessarily on the hashtag watch the film, grind or whatever. But I think that Allen Hurns is interesting. And then a guy that, has been getting a lot of Twitter hype up is Patrick Laird, the running back for the Dolphins, who had 6 catches last week. So the Browns are down, or the Browns are up real big. I mean, I'd rather play Patrick Laird than play Kalen Ballage. I'm
just out on both. I don't want to look myself in the mirror at 7:00 tonight and be like, you really played Patrick Laird or Kalen Ballage. I'm just going to take it both out of my player pool. If they beat me, they beat me. But I like Fitzpatrick. There's a good chance. I may use him in cash if I'm going to pay up for 2 running backs and 2 receivers. I don't know though. We'll see. I may change that. I know I sent it over to Jason, and he thought it was disgusting, but it'll work.
Last game thing on this game too. So the Browns defense. So they're obviously priced up with the fact that they had all those guys. Obviously they're missing those 3 key defenders. So where do you see their ownership kind of like falling out? Like, because we know that it may not actually even matter. Like Fitzpatrick could just like implode. Like that happens, whether or not, those guys are there or not. So do you think the Browns ownership comes in really, really, really low because of all these injuries? Or do you think people are just not keen enough to like realize that all those guys are out?
No, I definitely don't think the public knows how injured Cleveland's defense is.
Okay.
I think everybody knows Myles Garrett's out, but yeah, like you were saying, that I mean, Cleveland needs to come out and go off today, right? Like the media stuff right now, like the best way to shut it all up, and I know it's not anybody else's fault besides, Myles Garrett and Rudolph, whatever. We're not going to get into that situation, but the best way to change the subject is to just go out and ball out.
Yeah.
So I love Cleveland today. I'm not sure how I want to stack it up. So I think that's how I'm going to be in most of my pools. I'm either going to have Nick Chubb or I'm either going to have the passing game. I don't think I'm going to use both because it's kind of like the Atlanta thing where they could score 40 points. I don't know if I see Cleveland scoring 40 points to where I'd want to use Nick Chubb with pass catchers. So I think that's kind of how I'm going to go. If I don't have a lineup with Nick Chubb, it's probably going to have Beckham or Landry in there. And then when I use Baker, I'm going to stack it with a pass catcher or two, and then a Miami guy on the other side. Probably just going to be Parker or Gesicki, and then a little bit of Allen Hurns if I have to. That's it. I'm out on this Laird guy or Lard, whatever he is, and then I'm always been out on Kalen Balaj.
Yeah,
I like this chance. I like this game. I like this game going over. Maybe if you want to tease it, and then tease Miami to get like plus 18. I don't see them losing by that much, but who knows? I've also called the Bears over twice this year as a lock and missed it. But that is our next game. New York Giants at Chicago Bears. Bears are a 6-point favorite, over under 39.5. And I will take the Bears game over as a lock again this week. And we'll see it's got to come true one day, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to hit eventually.
No, I mean, New York's defense is so bad. I'm gonna have a lot of Trubisky right now. I'll tell you that again. I've said that twice. 1 week it worked out, but it was more so because the rest of my lineup went off. I think that was my best GPP lineup of the year. The one I took down the $300 tournament at DraftKings. I don't remember what it was, but it was with Trubisky. So that was disgusting, and he didn't even do anything. But I'll let you get your initial thoughts on this game, and I'll kind of chime in and see if I could temper my expectations for this game.
No, man, I like Trubisky too. The Giants defense is one of the two defenses this year that's allowing over 300 passing yards per game on the road. So they actually allowing the most passing yards per game on the road this season. And we've seen it before with Trubisky with these favorable matchups. Like, the coach goes out there, tries to prop him up, make him look good, trading up for him over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. So I think Trubisky's in a good spot. It just sucks that he's not running as much. But, I mean, the Giants on the road are allowing an average yards per attempt of 9.8. That is absurdly high. So even if you don't want, Trubisky, because I get it's gross, I do think you want some of his pass catchers. So whether that's Allen Robinson, I personally really like Taylor Gabriel in cash at 4,200. He has blow-up games, and he's been really consistent over the last couple of weeks. He scored, at least 9 fantasy points in the last 4 weeks. And he also has the upside. He scored like 30 points back in week 3 when he had a 3-touchdown game. So I'm not saying he's going to catch 3 touchdowns, but in a favorable matchup, he's a guy that can blow up in spots, but he's been consistent as of late. So yeah, I'm on the Chicago Bears passing game. I think that if you don't want Trubisky, I would say at least try to grab one of these Bears pass catchers because they're priced pretty cheap.
Yeah, I love it, man. Allen Robinson is going to have DeAndre Baker. If you listen or read anything I do, I always talk about DeAndre Baker. That dude's awful. I'm pretty sure I could score 12 fantasy points on him. I don't know. I probably run like a 5.2 40. We'll see. But then Corey Ballantyne in the slot. So Anthony Miller, he's in play at 3,500. I would prefer the Gabriel or Robinson route like you were talking about. It's because I think Gabriel will see a lot of Janoris Jenkins, right? And Gabriel could burn him. It's just that's the thing I don't like, though. Is like I like Gabriel so much, but Trubisky's deep ball is terrible. But as you can see, it is a beautiful morning in Chicago today. It is going to be 50 degrees, not very windy. It's probably the last nice game we'll see in Chicago for some reason. I think it's supposed to get down to like the 20s this week. So take advantage of it, Trubisky, if you're listening. I'm not a Bears homer by any means either, not a Bears fan. So don't think that I'm just playing the Bears here because I like them. I don't know how anybody could like them. This offense hasn't done anything all year. But like you said, I mean, the Giants give up 300-plus passing yards on average all the time. So, and then one game, I think this year, the Redskins were the only team not to put up more than 25 points on the Giants. So the over makes no sense to me at 39.5. And I just think everybody for the Bears is in play, David Montgomery included. I don't know if I want to use Cohen at all, but what about this Giants side? I love Saquon Barkley. I'm seeing like 5% ownership on Saquon Barkley. He's under 8K. He was probably the number one pick in all your fantasy drafts this year, and he's under 8K. I think this is the whole marketing scheme everybody talks about. This is buying Netflix for $1, folks.
Yeah,
shares of Netflix for Wall Street guys.
I'm definitely in on Barkley this week. Like you said, he's under 8K. He's under 8K for the first time all year. So when we see these dips in prices, it's like, hey, this is when you time to buy. Saquon Barkley, I have so much invested in like seasonal leagues. Like I traded for him in a bunch of places. I think people are concerned about the injury, but listening to some podcasts with some actual doctors, they're saying that he's fine. Like he's coming off the bye week. Like this is, if he's been banged up, this is probably the healthiest he's going to be. So you don't want to miss out on Barkley against the Bears defense that has been gashed by the run. This isn't the Bears defense this isn't your 85 Bears defense, people. Like they've been gashed by the run like all season after losing guys like Akeem Hicks. So not afraid.
And Danny Trevathan. Trevathan's out too. He's a good run stopper as well. So this should be Saquon day. And the Bears give up a lot of pass catchers to running backs too. So let's go.
Yeah.
I think Barkley's got a 5-catch prop too.
Do we have any updates on Sterling Shepard?
He's in. Yes.
He's in. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the Giants then. Outside of Saquon, we have no Evan Ingram. We have no Rhett Ellison or whoever the hell some of you guys were trying to play earlier this year. What do you like on the Giants side? I love Golden Tate. I think he's an excellent route runner. I'm not usually one to like these little short try hard guys, but that is Golden Tate, and he would beat the hell out of me too. He's jacked, but he's an excellent route runner, and he's going to see Buster Skrine, who is bad for the Bears. This guy, I don't know if you saw that route, the Cooper Kupp deep ball. He took one step, and Buster Skrine kind of just stopped. I don't know what he's doing out there half the time. I love Golden Tate, especially when Evan Ingram's out. I wrote about it somewhere. I guess long story short, in the 2 games without Evan Ingram, Golden Tate has 3 touchdowns and like 14 catches for over 200 yards, I believe. So that's all I need to know.
But did Shepard miss those games too? So that's the only thing.
Shepard missed one of them.
Okay. So yeah. So that's the only reason I'm not so into Golden Tate, just because they do have another pass catcher in the back there with Sterling Shepard, and I don't know what they're going to do with. Shepard has played in the slot before, and those 2 guys really haven't played that much together this season because Tate was suspended, and then Shepard had his concussion. So I don't really know what to expect from those guys in terms of, okay, well, they're both going to play in the slot. They're going to play 50-50. Is it going to just eat into Darius Slayton's work, who really seems more as like the primary outside receiver? So I don't really know. So I don't really love the matchup for Daniel Jones, so I'm really not really onto the Giants pass catchers. Who is the just one note? So obviously the 2 tight ends are out. So who is it? Is it Caden Smith? That's the next tight end. So is he at minimum?
2,500, I believe.
All right. So that could be a potential punt play. He's a tight end that's starting. So
yeah, he's gonna get 60+% of the snaps. I'm out on it, but maybe I'll do 1 or 2 just because that price is ridiculous. But again, tight end, I'm going to go Vance McDonald or Zach Ertz, or potentially, Griffin and Gesicki, like I talked about earlier. But I think that's it. Maybe Ben Watson, but we'll get into that. I do love Golden Tate. He's going to be 1% owned today, guys. I just think he works. Like when they score points, it's usually because of either Saquon Barkley when he's healthy, or it's Golden Tate this year. I don't see them forcing Sterling Shepard at, 8 targets or whatever. I know he's coming back, and he's got a great price too. So if you want to play him, go ahead. I just think when New York Giants need a first down and it's not coming from Barkley, it's going to be to Golden Tate. So I think he'll have a heavy workload. He's probably more of a floor player, so someone you want to use in cash. But I'm going to have a lot of him when I'm stacking this game because I do think it goes well over the total. Add that to that. Maybe that's my teaser of the week. Get Miami plus, do the 7-point teaser, Miami plus 18, over 38 or whatever that makes the Cleveland game, and then over 33 or whatever it makes this Bears game. That's what I'm going to do. If it loses, They won't. There you go. Let's go to some questions. All right. I talked about Ryan Metcalf or Winston Odell. Have Ridley and Evans as my other two receivers. If you have Ridley and Evans, okay. I would say Winston Odell. I don't know how much I want to play Seattle or Philly. I liked them a lot in the beginning of the week, but what are your thoughts there? I just think that this Cleveland game and that Atlanta Tampa Bay game is just such a home run. So that's where I want to kind of play.
I guess it depends on what kind of contest it is, but I would say like in a large field GPP, I prefer the Metcalf. Metcalf is not. I don't know how owned he's going to be, but in the Eagles secondary has been playing better, but I mean Metcalf is just like dude's a beast, and we don't know what is up with Lockett. Like Lockett's supposedly healthy and good to go, but what if he gets? And we've seen this all year. Some guys come back from injuries and are like they just blow up. And other guys come back from injuries and just like get knocked out of the game. So from Beckham is like you said, Beckham's going to have super high ownership. Same thing with Winston. I think Matt Ryan is safer than a guy like Winston. So I think I'd actually prefer that Metcalf one.
Okay. Jason, I hopped on after 3 hours of sleep. Sounds like they hit the town last night. Right on, guys. Hope you had fun. Great show on Sirius last night. He goes, in the first tout I'm hearing is Trubisky and the Bears offense. There you go. That's all you need to know. Go build your pool. Bears are horrible. Clayton says, yes, they are. But if you use a Trubisky, Gabriel, and Golden Tate, or Trubisky, Gabriel, Saquon, or Trubisky, Allen Robinson, Saquon, you could do a lot with that lineup. Go get your Atlanta, Tampa Bay guys. Go get your New Orleans Saints, whatever you want to do. I think that's a good way to differentiate. But again, I don't want you guys to invest your life savings in Mitch Trubisky here because you have no idea. I'm probably going to do it, but I'm sick in the head sometimes.
Hey, don't people forget, hey, someone won the Millionaire last year and they played 5 Bears. 5 Bears.
It's this week. Let's make it happen. All right. Thoughts on Hunt today. I think we like Hunt. You're a little more on Hunt than I am. I just think but it makes sense to the game script. I kind of think this game shoots out, so I definitely think Hunt's in play. He's going to get 5 catches, so his floor is there, and maybe he gets some goal line work too. Like, he's a really good running back. They just give Nick Chubb at 27 carries last week, so I definitely think Hunt's in play for sure. That's a really nice price on him.
And I think that Hunt is probably going to be, like, from an ownership standpoint, he'll probably be lower owned than Chubb. And he's way cheaper, and he catches the ball. Like, who's going to catch more passes, Chubb or Hunt? It's Hunt. And if Hunt just if he takes a screen to the house, like, he's going to blow up. And I think that at his ownership, I think that he's a great play. Yeah,
like I said, I definitely want a Cleveland guy in almost all of my GPP lineups. So if I can't afford Odell or Jarvis, then I definitely think, and Chubb, obviously, if I can't afford him either, I definitely think Hunt's going to be a crucial part of my builds this week. I do like his chances of getting 15 points, and at 5.6K, that's almost 3x value. And like you said, if he can get in the box, he could have a big day for us. So we might as well do it. This is the matchup for it. Next game, Oakland at New York Jets. Jets are +3 at home, over under a 46.5. So we got a pretty high total here. I think Darryl Roberts is out and Tremaine Johnson's out. Not like the Jets secondary was good to begin with. So whether or not those guys being out, it may help the team. I don't know at this point. But what are your thoughts here? I know Javi likes this game a lot. He likes the Oakland side. I like the Jets too. I don't necessarily not like Oakland. They don't play at a high pace. I've never seen a ceiling game out of Derek Carr, so I don't want to use him in GPPs. I think he's more of a cash guy. I don't like his receivers. Darren Waller's coming back to earth. I don't really see the weapons for Derek Carr to have a 30-point game. Besides, I guess maybe his best weapon is that New York Jets secondary. Just let them beat themselves. But Darnold's been balling out a little bit too, so I like this Jets side, but I'll let you get into it.
Yeah, this game for me kind of honestly seems kind of like a trap game for the Raiders. They're favored on the road. They're going to the East Coast, and they have a game coming up with the Chiefs next week. And if they win this game, they will have the same record as the Chiefs. So this game for me is like something that I'm trying to get away from the Raiders side, or at least like So like Josh Jacobs is going to probably be like, I don't know what his ownership's going to be at. Like, I think he's just kind of like a more of a fade for me personally, because like the Jets have obviously an elite run defense, and I think the Raiders are probably going to come out slow in this game. Like I said, they're traveling, and I don't know if they're going to be like totally engaged from the get-go. And I think if you look at the splits, Derek Carr puts up better numbers on the road. And that's because the team is throwing more on the road. And Jacobs really hasn't been super involved as a pass catching back. So Josh Jacobs has been, obviously great this season, but I'm not sure how great he's going to be in this particular game. So he's not someone that I'm really looking at to pay out for. But I would say, like, one guy that, we know what he can do from a GPP play is Robbie Anderson. And he's not even coming in, like, his price is at 4,800, which isn't even really like great. I mean, it's obviously a cheaper price, but the Raiders defense has allowed the most passing plays of 20 yards or more. Like, this is a spot where Robbie Anderson, okay, we know he can do. He caught a touchdown last week. All right, maybe he's taking baby steps forward, but this is the matchup where if Sam Darnold can expose this Raiders secondary, which is terrible, I think that Robbie Anderson is really worth a GPP throw.
100% agreed. I like him a lot. Well, not a lot, but as that GPP dart throw, I don't think anybody's going to play him. Someone was asking about the weather in New York. It just says chance of showers, 15-mile-an-hour wind, so nothing crazy. If that rain holds up, we should be fine. And then Denver here, it's going to be 20 to 25-mile-an-hour winds sustained throughout the game. Doesn't look like rain, but yeah, we didn't like that game to begin with, so I'm not going to talk about that too much. But yeah, I do think Robbie Anderson this is a great, if there's a game for him to score a deep ball, this should be it, right?
I would hope so, because he hasn't done it all season. And I mean, he's getting air yards, so it would make sense that this would be a game where he does it. A lot of people are going to be playing Crowder. So I think that Robbie Anderson, I just don't know how high Crowder's ceiling is. He's a guy that really sees a lot of more intermediate targets and doesn't really see a lot of targets down the field.
He's just been blowing up.
Yeah.
I call him the little guy. I do not like Jamison Crowder at all, but man, he's been balling lately.
But then you mentioned
my words.
You mentioned your guy Ryan Griffin, the tight end, who I think is actually. It sucks because I was looking at Ryan Griffin this week. I was like trying to find his price. I was like, oh, he's probably not. I mean, he's priced like decently high, compared to the field at tight end. So DraftKings is on to the Ryan Griffin matchup. I'm at 4,200.
Yeah, that's a David Jones guy. My best lineup last week was the one I had with Griffin, and I did not have any shares of him until after I talked to David. So thanks, David. Much appreciated, buddy. But 4.2K, he only had 5 targets last week. He scored. I know it's just, I don't know. I'm not going to pay 4.2K for Ryan Griffin. I'll have a little bit of him in maybe like a game stack situation. But no, it's Vance McDonald or Zach Ertz for me again. Broken record. I don't know. I don't want to chase the points there. I'm not sure how interested I am in this game, but I do like the Jet side, so maybe I do need a little bit more Griffin than I have already. But what about Lev Bell? Thoughts on him?
Yeah, so we talked about it offline a little bit. He did lose some significant snaps last week to Bilal Powell. He only played 58% of the snaps. So again, could that be Adam Gase? Could that be his knee injury? I don't know. And then it came out, he tweeted out this week about getting drug tested multiple times, and I wasn't sure if like the team would be like, hey, you can't tweet that out and like discipline him or something. Like, there's been no reports of that, but like Bell has just been a guy that we haven't really seen any ceilings from him, and I don't know if we're going to see that in this game necessarily. Like, the Raiders' run defense is better than its secondary, so it's just like Le'Veon Bell is like, he's just like fine. Like, he hasn't really been ever in a blow up spot. The offense isn't really good enough for that, and I mean, he's not running behind the same Steelers offensive line that he ran before last 2 years ago. So I don't know if it's the same guy anymore. I'm not sure if we're just chasing, 2016, 2017 Le'Veon Bell when he's really more or less just a starting running back on a subpar offense.
Yeah, I think he's more cash viable. He's got a 4.5 catch prop. He's minus 125 to score. I think it's like 90 all-purpose yards for Lev Bell. Like you said, I just don't think there's a ceiling, but I think he's game script proofed. If this game turns to a shootout, he'll be involved. Pending the whole thing last week, he was kind of on a pitch count, it seemed like, and I know he's coming off a knee injury or whatever it was. So maybe that's all fine now. but I think at 6,400 on DraftKings, he's more of a cash play because I think no matter what, he's going to get you 12 to 15. I don't know if he's going to get you over 20, so I don't really like him as much in GPPs. But yeah, that's where I'm at there. What about Tyrell Williams? Anybody on the Oakland side? I'd hate to just skip over them and they put up 30 points this week. I don't see it out of them. They just play so damn slow. I don't really like it, but Tyrell Williams has a hell of a matchup against anybody in this Jets secondary.
Yeah, I mentioned before, Derek Carr plays better on the road from a fantasy points perspective, and that coincides with his receivers. So I do think Tyrell Williams at his price, kind of in that median price range, I think that he's a good play.
Okay. What about Renfro? You see, and I know a lot of people are starting to get into him. I think he's cash viable, but I think he's 4,600 on DraftKings. Personally, I'd rather just go pay $3K for Tim Patrick. But yeah, Renfro's getting involved. Yeah. What are your thoughts on him?
Renfro's basically been destroying Darren Waller. Basically, he's been taking away a lot of Waller's targets that we saw earlier in the season. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine playing Hunter Renfro in a GPP. Like we saw that one game where he took a slant like 80 yards to the house, but like that's like I feel like that's so low in his like range of outcomes of him like catching an 80-yard touchdown. That's obviously more like a Tyrell Williams range of outcomes. So I think that, yeah, as a floor play, I think Renfro is definitely a viable cash option.
All right, for sure. So I'm going to make one more receiver punt play here. I'm going to put him in my MME this morning. I'm going to put Zay Jones in there. The snaps are getting up there for him. I think this is the week he scores a touchdown. I believe he is absolutely dirt cheap. I wouldn't build any single entry around him. You don't need to do that. Yeah, he's going to be less than 1% owned. I'm going to use Zay Jones, Alan Hearns, and Tim Patrick, and potentially Anthony Miller as my 4 receiver punt plays that are going to be under 4K. I always like to have a couple of those guys in my player pool, so I think that's my 4 right there. Any thoughts on Zay Jones, or just keep moving on? We don't need to talk about Zay Jones.
Well, would you say just Zay Jones versus Hearns? So would you say that you think that Jones has more upside than Hearns, or if it was just between those two, who would you play?
Hearns, because I like the game's chances of shooting out more.
All right.
But I will have a little bit of Derek Carr. I know that's Javi's guy this week, and I would hate to just completely fade Javi.
Yeah, don't.
Maybe he Eddie Mushes him. I don't know, but I'll have a little bit. I don't see. I think this game's going to be right around that total of 46. I don't really have a great read on it going well over, well under, maybe well under if Oakland plays so like they're used to doing. It's just, I don't know. I don't think this game is going to win anybody at GPP unless the Jets go off and you go Darnold and Robbie Anderson, because that guy could blow the doors off anybody. So he's a perfect GPP play like we talked about. Maybe Griffin too if you're into that. I'm just not going to chase those points. Couple questions here. Can we trust Evans? I think absolutely. Evans has a 6-catch prop. He's minus 135 to score. You guys know I like looking at these props to kind of justify some decisions. They don't guide me to everything I'm doing, but I do love Mike Evans. He tears up this Atlanta defense. If you listen to the Sirius XM show last night, David Jones kind of talked about that. Evans has these guys' number. I think he's going to get peppered with targets. The more Atlanta scores, so this is going to help Mike Evans. I love Godwin too. I think Andrew's more on the Godwin side. I just see for a GPP, the upside's going to Mike Evans, so I definitely trust him. You could use him in cash too, in my opinion, with a 6-catch prop, 95 all-purpose yards. All-purpose. He's not running the ball, so 95 receiving yards. Yes, I like Mike Evans a lot. Winston or Darnold GPP from Clayton with Landry, Evans, and Ridley. Well, if you're using Darnold, right, you're going to want a pass catcher for the Jets. So for that build, go Winston for sure.
Yeah.
Controversial. Tyrell Williams, Alshon Jeffrey, or Brandon Cooks full point PPR. Man, that's tough. I think I would go Tyrell Williams there.
Yeah, I agree.
He's got a very juicy matchup, and then Alshon would be second. I don't think I'm going to play Brandon Cooks. Kind of want to see how that goes first. And Brandon Cooks isn't a PPR guy anyway. He's more of your standard league or half point, because when he does his damage, he's catching a couple deep balls going to the house. Nick and Andrew, I'm hearing so much on Laird in the Twitter sphere. Have you guys spoke about him? Yes, we're out. Well, I don't know if Andrew's out. I'm 100% out. I'm not chasing whatever that was.
I think Laird is definitely worth, if you're making a Browns like onslaught like lineup, I think Laird is a really good way to get, as a throwback piece. I'm not building a lineup around like Laird, but if the Browns are up by a lot of points, Laird came in as the pass catching running back for the Dolphins. Fitzpatrick came out and said, he wants him to see more playing time. And the Dolphins are in an evaluation period. So I think that Laird is a guy that you can bring back with the Browns onslaught, stack if you want to get away from Devontae Parker.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. At 3,400, he's definitely in play. I would just make sure that I have 2 stud running backs in there as well. And then, maybe put him in as a Browns type of stack offset for sure, because I think that's the only way that it makes sense to play him is if the Browns are going off.
Right.
All right. Russell Gage from Thomas Falk here, a punt for wide receivers at 3,900. Definitely. I think he'll be number 5 in my player pool for those guys under 4K. We'll get to that game. We kind of pushed it back just to kind of save the juicy stuff for later. Carolina at New Orleans. New Orleans is a 10-point favorite, over under 45.5. Give me all of the Kamara I could afford until Lat Murray comes in and scores twice and breaks my heart. But what are your thoughts on this game? Kamara's got a 5.5 catch prop, minus 185 to score, 110 all purpose. He is the safest play on the board, in my opinion, outside of Christian McCaffrey and probably Michael Thomas. He will be in my cash lineup for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on Kamara. And yeah, I think that you just kind of hit the nail on the head there with Latavius Murray as a guy that you don't want to just totally ignore, especially in like a GPP. Even if you could play, Carolina gives up the most touchdowns to running backs. So theoretically, you could play Murray and Kamara together in a GPP where you could totally leverage the fact that, okay, how good has this passing game really been with Breeze? It really hasn't been that good. If you're like, I think they're just going to run the ball like a million times. They're at home. You play Latavius Murray, you play Kamara, you play Saints defense. Like that could be a really interesting stack from a Saints perspective. But one thing I'll mention too, so you have Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara, and I'm not sure how popular it'll be to play them together. They're obviously both super expensive, but they both kind of correlate negatively towards each other. So I looked at their last couple game logs, and basically anytime McCaffrey has gone over 20 points, Kamara has been held under 15 and vice versa. So whichever one of them kind of blows up, the other one kind of is less likely to really have a huge impact, or at least that's what it's been the last couple times these guys have played. But sample size is, 5 games, looking at the regular season and the playoffs. So I wouldn't say, if you're thinking about like, I want to pay up, get all of my studs at running back in, and for GPPs, I would definitely say that's not the best move. I wouldn't play McCaffrey and Kamara together in a GPP, even though you think that, okay, well, they could both score all their team's touchdowns in a game with a 45.5 over under. Don't know if that's going to work in this matchup.
Yeah, that's something that I don't usually ever do, is go running back against another running back in a lineup. I don't think that's or I guess that is kind of counterproductive. But these guys are also the team's second or third best receiver on both sides. So I think it kind of makes sense if you want to do that. But then you're going to probably have to play Patrick Laird as your flex or something if you're using both of those guys. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's one or the other. You just can't really do much with your salary if you're paying 10.5 for McCaffrey and 8.2 for Kamara. I just think this is Kamara all day to me, but I'm going to differentiate a little bit because Kamara's probably going to come up as like 45% owned in single entry GPPs, I think, this week. In MME, he'll probably be around 30, 35. I just think it's single entry. Everybody's going to do that. So, I don't know. He doesn't do a whole lot as a runner this year. It's all the pass catching. So if they get a big lead, if Michael Thomas starts to go off early and they're up 17-3 or something like that, maybe we do see a lot more Latavius Murray because they don't need to use Kamara like crazy. So I could definitely see a path to fading Kamara. And maybe I will in my main GPP, my single entry lineups that way, but I will have Kamara in cash for sure. You probably can't afford not to use him because he's going to be so heavily owned in cash and single entry GPPs. But I don't know. Am I crazy to say that?
No, I think you're on. I think you're spot on. Like I was considering kind of fading Kamara and GPPs. There are a lot of ways you can do it. So, example, Michael Thomas, 9,300, who's been better this year. Like Michael Thomas has been the better Saints offensive player all season. And Michael Thomas scored 28.4 fantasy points last week, and his price went down. His price went down after he scored 28 fantasy points. He's averaging almost 30 points per game at home. Like, and his price went down. And I'm like, everyone's kind of buying into Kamara, but like, dude, Kamara hasn't really done much this year. Like, there's a lot of range of outcomes where Michael Thomas could easily outscore Kamara. And if you're heavier on Thomas than Kamara, I think that's a easy pivot. So yeah, I think there are a lot of ways you can get off of Kamara, either on the Saints or with other pieces.
Yeah, exactly what KC said in the chat here. Sean Payton throws in the dome and Breeze is stat chasing. They are trying to give Michael Thomas 2,000 yards. I don't think any receiver's ever done that before. And I think that's what we're going to do in my main GPP. I think I'm going to go off Kamara, and I'll just do Michael Thomas, get my exposure to the Saints that way, and then maybe go back to my boys Trubisky and Allen Robinson with some Saquon Barkley as my lead dog, and to kind of make up for whatever I'm losing with Kamara. But just when you're building your lines, just kind of think about things like that. You don't just, everybody's saying Kamara's a smash play. For sure he is, but if you want to differentiate in a tournament, if he's going to be 40% owned in a single entry GPP that pays 20% of the field, if Kamara has 15 points, that's not going to help anybody. So, if 40% of the field has them, let's just say those 40% of the field are eliminated unless they have a crazy lineup outside of that. There's 60% of you left to get to that 22% pay line. You kind of just made a GPP a cash game right there. So that's when I like to talk about fading the chalk. Make sure it's, you're fading bad chalk. I wouldn't call Kamara bad chalk by any means, but there's definitely a game script here where Kamara doesn't go off, in my opinion.
Right.
So, and when you do that, I would probably just go to Michael Thomas, because I think that is the game script that Kamara doesn't go off. Is if they get a big lead, it's because of this passing game with Breeze and Michael Thomas. So that's my thoughts on the Saints. I like Jared Cook a little bit because, again, if the Saints are going to go off, I think they got the highest implied total on the slate of 28 with Cleveland and Atlanta. So everybody's in play, I think, for the Saints. I don't think you need to go to Ted Ginn or Traquan Smith at all this week. Any thoughts there on these secondary guys for the Saints?
I think that they're worth, especially like a large field GPP. I think that those guys are worth putting in a lineup with Breeze, just because they're at the Dome, and this is where you see the blow up spots for these outside receivers for the Saints. But I'm not heavily weighted on either of them.
Yeah, and then Carolina will try to pick it up a little bit here, try to get done by 10:45 or 11:45 your time at the latest. For Carolina, you could always play McCaffrey. I think DJ Moore's in play for sure. It doesn't sound like Lattimore's going to play. I don't think I want to pay somewhat of a premium for Greg Olsen, but he's in play. And it's just Kyle Allen's the quarterback. He's terrible. I want nothing to do with investing in his pass catchers, but I think DJ Moore's a lock for 8+ targets, so he could definitely be in play, and he's been solid the last month. So that's all I have on Carolina. It's just if you could afford McCaffrey, use him. Yep. I don't think I will be doing that often because I'd rather go to Michael Thomas or to go to this next game here, Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Atlanta's a 4-point home favorite here, a total of 52 points, by far the highest on the board. Personally, I think I like the under in this game. There is no running identities really for either team. So, sure, that means a shootout, right? We're all going to pass every play. But this also can stop drives pretty quickly. So 52 points is a lot. I don't see this game going over. Maybe I add that to my teaser as well. Tease the under with 59, that 7-point hook we get. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one? I think this is definitely the best game to invest in, though, on the slate this week.
Yeah, so I think it's really important with this game that we kind of have to try to identify like who are the main plays. Like obviously, like everyone is kind of everyone's going to be on this game. So like one thing I'll note is like Julio Jones is like, so he's probably going to be the chalkiest guy, but I do think that being said, it's so hard to like try to get off of Julio. But if you want to get off of him, like just be heavy on Ridley and Russell Gage, like be heavier on those guys, because we've seen it all year, like just Julio just doesn't score that many touchdowns. It's just a fact. It's just what happens. He just doesn't score that much. But I'm not saying I can't faithful Julio. Because it's too much of a smash spot for him. But I would being said, I think it does make sense to, in some GPP builds, to not have Julio, but instead play, Bucks receiver, Evans or Godwin, and then play Russell Gage and play Calvin Ridley. Because let's say Julio smashes, but can Russell Gage and Calvin Ridley combined score more points than Julio at a lesser price? Maybe that's definitely in play there. And I think that just kind of figuring out the puzzle pieces here. I would say you can't go with the chalkiest stack. That's just not going to work. So you got to think a little bit outside the box.
I think the chalkiest stack is just clearly going to be Matt Ryan, Julio, and then one of these pass catchers for Tampa Bay. So if you want to get a little bit different, go 2 pass catchers for Atlanta, or just whip it the other way and go Jameis, $2 or $1 and 1 Falcon. In my opinion, that's probably what I'll do. I like the Jameis side a little bit more just because I know they're going to be chucking the ball because Atlanta will score. But I think Julio's by far the best play on the board at the receiver position. Ownership showing that too. I find it hard to believe he doesn't score 20 points today. And we had a question from someone in the chat there. Are we worried about James Bradbury? No, it's Michael Thomas.
No.
Michael Thomas doesn't just sit on the outside and it's like, all right, James, you could shadow me easily and use the sideline as your help defender there. No, Michael Thomas is going to go to the slot. Bradbury's not going there.
Those matchups are overrated anyway. Cornerback, because guys move around so much. If you had faded Diggs last week against Harris, you got burned.
That was one play, so that's
all you need sometimes, though. That's why elite receivers can do that.
But that's not really the guy that Michael Thomas is. He's not the burner, but he plays 30% of his routes out of the slot. James Bradbury has gone to the slot never this year. So, yeah, I'm not worried about James Bradbury, and I would take Michael Thomas over any quarterback anyway. If Chris Harris shadowed him, I'd still play Michael Thomas. All right, so back to Atlanta. Yeah, Gage, I like him a lot. I know David Jones was talking about him a little bit last night. It's such a nice salary relief, but does he have the upside? I don't know. They called his touchdown back last week. That sucked. I had a lot of Gage last week. But I think anywhere you go on this Atlanta side is going to pay dividends there. I don't want to use Jaden Graham's their tight end. So it's just going to be these 3 receivers and Matt Ryan and then a little bit of Brian Hill for me. But what do you got on the Tampa Bay side? I've obviously confessed my love for Mike Evans this week. I do love Godwin too. I think that's my favorite stack is Evans, Godwin, and Jameis with a Atlanta pass catcher. But I'll get your thoughts on this and then we can kind of move on.
Yeah, I prefer Godwin over Evans. And I mean, here's a narrative for you to chew on. So basically you look at Godwin. So he's had 3 catches this season 3 times. And then he's followed those up with road games with over 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. So basically he's had 3 catches. He had 3 catches last week and the 2 prior times. So 8 catches, 121 and 1 the next week. And then 12 catches for 172 yards and 2 the next week after a 3-catch performance. So he had 3 catches last week. So if the trends continue, it should be a blow-up spot for Chris Godwin. And he also has a better track record against the Falcons. He scored 3 touchdowns against them last season. So I like Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I'm in on him too. He's going to get a lot of Kendall Sheffield. He's very beatable. I think Mike Evans will see a little bit more of Desmond Trufant than we'd like, but I still think Evans they're both great plays this week. That's why I think that's my favorite stack. I think both guys could get 8 catches for 100 yards.
And then one last thing I'll note. So we mentioned Julio and just the fact that he's not a big touchdown guy and whether or not, but that's also not necessarily he needs touchdowns because he gets a lot of yardage. So one thing I think is interesting is actually, most people are going to try to stack Matt Ryan with Julio Jones. But the only real advantage you get to that is because of the touchdown equity. So if Matt Ryan throws a touchdown to Julio Jones, you get, more points that way as opposed to yardage. So I really like when you're playing Julio, actually stacking him with Winston instead of Matt Ryan, because I think that Ridley and Russell Gage honestly probably have a better chance of, having that scoring kind of equity with the Matt Ryan. So I think that actually fading a Matt Ryan Julio stack can be a way to kind of differentiate yourself a little bit. So instead using Winston and Julio.
Yeah, no, that's a cool, a smart way to look at it for sure. What about Cameron Brate or OJ Howard? Out on both?
Yeah, I can't. Those tight ends are just too much right now. I can't.
I'll play Brate in MME, but no single entry Brate for me. All right, next game, it's ugly. Detroit at Washington. Washington's plus 3.5, over under of 40, pretty low there. I know the guys on the show last night were very high on Darius Geis. It looks like Chris Thompson is scratched today, so that was one of my concerns. But it looks like AP is a go and Wendell Smallwood is a go. So that makes Darius Geis for me a no. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, he's been talked up a lot this through the industry this week. They're talking about getting him more work. He's obviously he's in a great spot. So I do think Geis is worth a GPP play. Honestly, I think that his upside. He's a really good running back. He's like comparable to a guy like, people compared him to Saquon Barkley, and you're getting him at a really good price. So I think that Darius Geis is definitely worth GPP consideration against the Lions that are just absolutely terrible against running backs. They can't stop running backs. Their defense just sucks in general. And Geis at 4,700. I mean, it would not honestly surprise me if Geis was like, oh yeah, but Geis went off, had 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Like at 4,700, that's in his range of outcomes, and that's a guy that can kind of break the slate a little bit at his price. So I like Geis in GPPs.
Yeah. He's in play. He's 4,700 on DraftKings. I think he's pretty cheap on FanDuel as well. I don't see a game script where they give him 20 touches because they obviously know how volatile his knee is. He's had issues there. They're playing for nothing this year. I maybe just get him some reps to, keep him going with the offense and everything, but I don't see a game script where he gets more than 15 touches, honestly. So I'm not going to pay for that, but I'll definitely have some exposure to him in larger field GPPs, but I'm not gonna. It sounded like he was a core play for both Javi and David Jones. I don't know, so take that for what it's worth. Those guys, I don't think that's a core play for me. I'd rather just pay the extra 500 for Lindsey, or go 300 up to Miles Sanders without Jordan Howard there. Like, give me the guaranteed workload. But for Washington, I don't want anything else to do with anybody at all. Maybe their defense for sure. I think that they could, I'm not buying into Jeff Driscoll like crazy, but also we were talking about this before we were on the air. Josh Norman is a healthy scratch today. So if we're seeing the end of Josh Norman. So he was the matchup I loved. Galladay today. Galladay's going to be like a 3 to 5% owned guy. And again, when I make my GPP lineups, I like to find guys that have a 2 touchdown type of ceiling. And Galladay is certainly that player. Driscoll does chuck the ball up. He's not nearly as accurate as Stafford is with the downfield throws, but he does throw it up a lot. Galladay's targets really aren't going down. I like Galladay a great deal today if he's going to be 3 to 5% owned. At 6,600 on DraftKings, I will have a lot of him. That's a stance I'm going to take today. If he burns me, that's fine. But if he goes off, I'm going to finish top 10 into GPP because I took that risk, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't really going into, this game thinking about Galladay, but you kind of have me on him. I'm convinced. I'm buying in. So let's hope we can get some Galladay today.
Yep. What about Bo Scarborough? I have to flex him in my my home league this week due to some bye weeks. It's a standard league too, so it's not as bad as that. But he's 4,200 on DraftKings. I'm usually never into these type of guys that, they showed up one week and here we go. I would have loved David to talk a little bit more about Bo Scarborough because he's the Bama Roll Tide boy. But I do see a game script where Bo Scarborough gets 15 plus touches. So he is in play for me. He ran 9 routes last week. So everybody's like, oh, he's never going to catch a ball. He ran routes. He just didn't get any throws. He may not get a throw, but at least he's out there running a couple of routes. So it's not like he's his PPR floor is 0, I think, or his ceiling is 0. I think he could definitely get 2 to 3 catches. This game's just kind of ugly. I don't know how much I want to invest in it besides like a Galladay flyer.
Yeah, I'm getting off Bo. I mean, maybe you could consider him in like cash, but like this Lions backfield has been a rotating carousel. They just pick a different guy every single week that they decide to use. And what if, the Redskins jump out to a lead, which is totally possible. Okay, they're going to be running. Is Detroit going to be running the ball with Bo Scarborough down by 10? Like, there's just so many outs with him, and He's played one game.
How did they go down by 10? Washington sucks.
Yeah, but Detroit's defense isn't very good either. Like, I mean, they can be run on, they can be thrown on, so they're not anything good. And turnovers are a thing too. Jeff Driscoll could fumble the ball, so it's not necessarily. And Washington's at home, so I mean, there are definitely things that could make Bo Scarborough game scripted out like easily. And remember, he had 55 rushing yards last week, and he was only like fantasy relevant because he scored a touchdown. Like if he doesn't score, then he has 5 points and no catches. So like you're looking at a guy with a range of outcomes that's like as low as like 2 points with no catches. So I mean, I would rather pay up for Geis than I would play Bo Scarborough. So yeah, I'm out. Especially with these like waiver wire guys. Like these guys always get a lot of ownership because you have the
new hot toy.
Yeah, because you have the people playing, seasonal leagues that also play DFS, and they're like, oh, like I have Bo Scarborough in waiver wire. Like I'm going to play him, and oh, he's cheap. Like I'm going to play him. But they don't really look too much into it. So yeah, I'm not on Bo. He's just kind of like a Derrick Henry clone, and it's just super cheaper. But like even Derrick Henry's a guy like it's so hard to sometimes play in DraftKings because of his PPR floor. He just doesn't passes, and that's just not a guy I want to run, even at his price.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm out on both those receivers, or both those running backs. But I will have a couple Detroit stacks. I like Driscoll with Amendola and Galladay. I think Amendola is in for a good day today. He doesn't really have a ceiling. I'm not super interested in that. So it'll probably be more just Driscoll and Galladay, but I will have a little bit of Danny Amendola, and I don't think I'm going to play much Marvin Jones at all. I think he'll see the most Quentin Dunbar on the day. But again, if you're doing a large field GPP or anything and you do like Driscoll, I think you could definitely put Marvin Jones in there because, again, you never know what day it's going to be Galladay or what day it's going to be Marvin Jones. But today I think it's Galladay, and at 3 to 5% ownership, I'm in. Can you still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, next game, Seattle at Philly. Total of 48 points. Philly is a 1-point favorite. It seems like Jordan Howard is out. I haven't heard anything on Alshon Jeffrey. I think he's supposed to play. No idea about Nelson Aguilar yet, so stay tuned in about 10 to 20 minutes on Twitter or whatever. Find your inactives. What are your thoughts on Seattle Philly? We'll kind of get this moving a little bit.
I mean, Russell Wilson is the most expensive quarterback on the slate, and we can see what he does when the game script goes in his favor. So, yeah, I mean, he's always in play as a quarterback in GPPs because he can literally score 40 points and, just totally like break the slate. And I think that he's going to probably have lower ownership with everyone basically being on like Matt Ryan and Jameis Winston. But Russell Wilson has just as high of a ceiling as those guys do, especially with their defense, which is not good. And the Eagles, I mean, they're favored, so it's like you'd think that, okay, like they should be able to keep this game should be competitive, even though just the Eagles, it sucks because Wentz just doesn't have a lot of his guys. I have so many injuries. I think Aguilar is interesting at his price if he plays, and if Alshon is out, then I think that Nelson Aguilar, who everybody hates basically, but the dude gets targets and is cheap. And so, but everyone hates him because he dropped the ball last week, but it's like, he still gets targets. Like he still is a receiver and he's going up against a team that just bleeds fantasy points to the wide receiver position. So Aguilar is in a really good spot and he's probably going to be really low owned because of the stigma kind of surrounding him. And he's at 4,100. So like, he's really easy to fit into a lot of builds.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Zach Ertz and Miles Sanders. I love Zach Ertz today. His ownership's going down a little bit because people can realize they can't pay for him. I think he is the home run tight end on the slate. There's no one else with a guaranteed floor of double-digit points. He's going to get it. I like him a lot. He'll be in my main lineup. Sanders, I will use him in cash because he's going to be so heavily owned. I don't know how much I'll have of him in a GPP, but probably a decent amount. I don't know if I'm going to pair him with Zach Ertz in a GPP unless I'm using Wentz, which I really don't want to do because I don't know the health of these wide receivers. But for Seattle, I definitely think the usual suspects are in play. Russell Wilson, I think Carson is severely underowned today. I know Philly's a really tough matchup, but that dude gets 25-plus touches every week. You never know. All he needs is to break one, and he's going to have a crazy game, and no one's going to play him. And he's involved in the passing game too. I like that. Lockett and DK Metcalf and Josh Gordon. What what's your read on these wide receivers? Lockett coming off that injury, but he had the bye week to recover. No one's playing Lockett. Is this a good week for him, or do you like Metcalf or Josh Gordon more?
Yeah, I think it's like a weird spot because you don't want to miss out on Lockett against the Eagles defense. Like, because Eagles defense is not, I mean, they've been playing better, but Lockett's such in a smash spot. But again, I think it's worth building a lineup with Lockett and then building something that fades Lockett and just kind of building around Metcalf and Josh Gordon. But one guy that you didn't mention is so we're talking about tight ends again, is Hollister. So Ed Dixon was supposed to come back as their tight end, but he was then put back on injured reserve. So they don't really have any other tight ends, and Luke Wilson, I believe, is questionable for this game. So if those guys are both out again, and Russell Wilson just has Luke Wilson as his tight end, I mean, he could be another tight. I mean, he's got massive upside because he plays with Russell Wilson as his quarterback. Like, it's hard to go wrong with a tight end attached to Russell Wilson, who has shown, hey, Will Dissly, he's a top tight end. And Jacob Hollister has been balling out in the last 2 games. He's played with Wilson with all those other guys out. So I think that Hollister is actually a really good play at tight end.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know how much exposure I'm going to have to this game. I think I'm out on Hollister. I got rid of all my Hollister clothes after 8th grade. So I'm not going to, I don't think I'm going to go to him. He's probably in a good spot, but 43K, I'd rather just go to Vance McDonald at 3.5. I know that he's going to get his 6+ targets. I can't say the same about Hollister, but if you like this game's ability to shoot out, you're definitely going to want to look at Hollister for sure. But Zach Ertz is my home run play there at the tight end position. I'm undecided on Seattle receivers. I think Josh Gordon's good for a large field GPP, but I think he gets a touchdown today, actually. They're going to get him going, but I like Metcalf the most, I think. I just think it's the safest play, but Lockett could go off, and you're going to see him at under 10% ownership. So if you do like Seattle, they could definitely break the slate. Russell Wilson could put up 35 points and be the QB1 on the board. Lockett could put up 25 and be a top 5 receiver. You could put Ertz on the other end of that type of stack, and he's going to be the number 1 tight end without a doubt, in my opinion. So this game does offer a lot in the DFS realm there, and you could use Sanders for salary relief with that stack and maybe put Carson in there too. I don't know. If you like this game's ability to shoot out, you could make some really good lineups with it.
So, and just kind of last thing with Sanders. So you're not concerned at all with the fact that, Boston Scott got some run last week, and there was some talk about Jay Ajayi having a notable role. I mean, it seems like the Eagles just don't ever want to give one running back the work. So, but that doesn't seem like it's a concern for you?
Not in cash, no, because if he's going to be 40% owned in cash, probably higher. It looks like he's that free square guy this week. In cash, I'm just going to eat the chalk with Sanders in cash. I don't like his upside as much in GPPs at that ownership, but for cash, no, it doesn't scare me at all. If he goes for 10 points, it doesn't matter because 50% or 60% of the field's going to have him, and that doesn't hurt me in a cash game.
Cool. All right. Next 2 games
game
left.
Yep, Dallas at New England. New England 6-point favorite, over under 45. It sounds like Mohamed Sanu is going to give it a go.
Oh, wow.
Not sure. Yeah, that was this morning. I'm not sure how interested I am in him, but I'll just say this: the N'Keal Harry chalk that keeps popping up this week, I'm out on that. I'm not. He's 3,300, but I'd rather go to Tim Patrick again, especially if Sanu's going to play. I just don't trust a rookie for New England to ever get extended run. So I'm out on that. I love Edelman, though, this week, and I know David Jones is on that as well. No one's playing Edelman. He's going to be right around 10% owned. Even with Sanu back, I would like Edelman more without Sanu. He's just seems like their only option. I would like James White a lot too without Sanu. So keep an eye on that. Maybe Sanu does scratch, but it sounds like he's playing. You get the afternoon game here, so you got some time to tinker around with it. But anybody you like in this game for the afternoon hammer, it sounds like all of our lineups are going to be heavily invested in this noon slate. And we've all been there crushing our tournaments, and then 3 o'clock comes around and we just get smashed by somebody in this 3 o'clock game. It's a good week to play Zeke, it looks like. No one's really playing him either.
Yeah, so I think Zeke's in a good spot. And I would say, as much as everyone hates him, I was looking at I was actually literally so surprised at his price on DraftKings was Sony Michel. He's I believe is at 4.3.
4.6.
4.6. So he is I couldn't find him on DraftKings. I was like, wait, where's Sony Michel? look, the Patriots are at home. They're favored, and they have a high implied team total. And that's their starting running back that gets goal line carries. Yes, I'm not
Let's
playing.
go. I'm with you, man.
I'm not playing him in cash, obviously, because he's literally has like a super low floor. But I mean, if you're like your lineup is playing like crap and you need a guy with 3 touchdown upside in the late game for under 5K, that's Sony Michel. So whether he's the guy,
sorry to cut you off, but this is my thing with Geis there, and Kalen Balaj and whoever, Bo Scarborough, if people that are interested in them, why wouldn't you just find a way to pay for Sony Michel instead? He's going to be like 2% owned, and you get that afternoon hammer. And this is an offense that makes sense, that will score a lot of points. Maybe not a lot of points today. You never know with Brady right now. But yeah, sorry to cut you off, but that's my whole thing is I'm not going to pay for Geis when Sony Michel's cheaper.
No, that totally makes sense. That's a really good point. But yeah, I think Sony Michel is definitely a guy that's in play. It's just the thing with him is like could be Burkhead, could be James White. So there's a bunch of different like scenarios where he like just kind of flames out, but there are scenarios where he does score like 3 touchdowns. And I live in New England, in Massachusetts, and it is literally pouring out right now. So it's going to be a wet day for the Patriots and Cowboys. So I think that's going to impact, I would say, they're probably going to want to run the ball a little bit more, especially with the receivers so banged up in New England. So I think that and also they're getting Isaiah Wynn back. They're getting their starting left tackle back. That's an upgrade to the offensive line. So I do think that Sony Michel is definitely someone you want in your GPPs. And if your lineup is like just doing crappy and you need a late game swap, I would swap on to Michel or swap on to Burkhead and just be like, I think this could be their week.
I think, yeah, James White too. Are you interested in him or only if Sanu's out?
Well, the thing with Sanu is like, even if he's in, I think that it looks like from the reports I'm reading is that they still want to kind of like get him in slowly. So he'll probably be like on a pitch count or something like that. So I kind of almost prefer that Sanu is in. That way people are kind of get off of some of these Patriots guys. Whereas I don't think Sanu is going to be a factor in this game. I think that he'll be active. But just looking at the Patriots have so many injured receivers, it could be like he's active because like he's less injured than our bunch of other guys. So like we have to make him active for the game, but he may not actually play that much.
Okay. And then we got a chat thing here. Norman is no longer inactive. It looks like Aaron Colvin, the guy that was maybe he got hurt in warmups and Josh Norman's back. So I don't know. Do you get the pissed off narrative for Josh Norman, or do we fade Galladay now? I think we use more Galladay.
Yeah, exactly. Now you need a double exposure to Galladay because now it's better because of Josh Norman. Oh man, dude, I'm excited to watch this Lions game, man. I'm gonna be tuned into this Galladay thing. I'm pumped.
Yeah, for the Dallas side, I'm only interested in Zeke and maybe Randall Cobb at that price point. They just won't move his price up on DraftKings. I'm not going to go to Amari against Stephon Gilmore. I'm not paying Gallup's premium price. I'm not doing that. I don't know how much Zeke I'll have, but if you like Zeke, you're getting Zeke under 10% owned this week, and that may never happen again. So now's the week to play Zeke if you like that. I just prefer Barkley in this spot. I'm not just going to build the lineup all around 5% owned running backs, but Barkley's my guy this week. And then I do like Michel a ton just because that salary saver. If I'm not using Lindsey, it's probably going to be Michel, and especially if this weather turns out to be bad. Ronald Jones is in that price range. I think he's a great play today. It's just you never know how much snaps a Tampa Bay running back's going to get. So to me, if Sony's going to be out there for 60% of the snaps, especially if this game's got bad weather, it's going to be higher than that. I don't see how we don't lock button in Michel in one of our favorite GPP lineups.
Yep. And then one last
especially
thing.
on FanDuel. On FanDuel, if he's cheap, he's a better play there. I like him a lot more on FanDuel, so I'll build some FanDuel lineups today, especially if Sony Michel is going to be underappreciated.
And one last thing to note about the Cowboys receivers. So Cooper, I'm totally out on. He sucks on the road. He's banged up. The matchup is terrible. I don't like Cooper at all. But one thing I will say about Gallup is the fact that the Patriots oftentimes, so a lot of people are kind of assuming Gilmore's just going to shadow Cooper. I'm not necessarily so sure that's going to happen. The Patriots oftentimes will have their number one corner. In this case, Gilmore will actually lock up again.
Play aside.
Play the number. He'll actually play the number 2 receiver. And they'll actually double team Cooper.
Bracket. Okay.
So that can be interesting. And like I said, so this is a total GPP play, but because of the fact that it is raining, guys fall down, guys slip, and Gallup has a very long, like average depth of target. So if Dak sees Gallup one-on-one with Gilmore, he might take a shot, and it just takes one slip up for Gilmore to fall down, and Gallup could catch an 80-yard touchdown. That's all I'm saying. And he's going to have literally no ownership. So I would say if you're going to play, if you feeling ballsy, play a Cowboys wide receiver, I would play Gallup. He's a good receiver, and if he's going to get the one-on-one coverage, that's what Dak's going to probably look towards. And Dak's not afraid to throw the ball down the field. So that's my Gallup take at a sub 1% ownership.
Yeah, I would have never thought about that at all. I don't know how much I'm going to handicap someone slipping, but that could be the weird thing that wins you a tournament.
We'll see.
Next game, the last game, and then we'll start building some lineups. It's going to be gross. Jacksonville at Tennessee. Tennessee is 3.5-point favorite. Total of 41 points. Tennessee, I want nothing to do with anybody on their team besides Derrick Henry. I think this is a great spot for him. He's priced nicely on DraftKings. Andrew talked about it earlier. We don't really love his ceiling in the PPR formats, but if anybody's going to score twice, Derrick Henry's that guy. So I do like him a great deal, and I love Fournette on the other side. No one's playing Fournette this week. He's been incredibly active in the passing game. Tennessee gives up a lot of receptions to opposing running backs. But the props kind of changed on Fournette overnight on me. I liked him yesterday, but now he's only at 4 catches, 103 all-purpose, and he's plus 110 to score. Yesterday he was less than even money, so I like that a little bit more. So I don't know. I don't know how much I want to invest in this game at all. We've talked about so many other good ones. I do like Chris Conley, a great deal for Jacksonville at 4,100 on DraftKings. I don't know if I'm going to play Chark, but he's been a stud. Seems like I'm underweight on Chark every week. What are your thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, I think D.A. Chark is too cheap, and I think Fournette is clearly the better play than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, I think, again, dude, the guy gets game scripted out of games and has been running so hot with touchdowns, whereas Leonard Fournette has literally had so many touches and has 1 touchdown. Like, it literally doesn't add up. And they talked about how they didn't run the ball enough last week. And I follow those types of narratives. Coaches that are on the hot seat, like, try to justify their actions. They're like, oh shit, like, we didn't do this. Like, we need to run the ball more. So I think Fournette's going to get a ton of carries. And I'm not a believer in the Titans are just a team I can never back. Be like, oh yeah, I'm so on the Titans. Like, and a lot of, a big thing I've been researching is road dogs. Road dogs have been really good this year. And especially against teams off bye weeks. So the Titans are coming off a bye week. So I really like Jacksonville in the spot. So I like Fournette, and Fournette could probably be that afternoon hammer, because I think of all these guys, like, he has a really strong chance at scoring multiple touchdowns.
Let's go. I'm in on Fournette. I like to hear that. Thank you. All right. So the reason I like Conley so much is that it's my weekly pick on LaShawn Sims matchup. So Chark will get Adoree Jackson, who he could burn for sure, and Chark's a big body guy. So I do like Chark. It's just the whole price thing for me. I like this Tampa Bay Atlanta spot more, and I need a lot of Galladay. I'm going to have a lot of Allen Robinson, Golden Tate, those games I mentioned earlier. So I don't see myself having many builds with DJ Chark. I'm cool with a Foles, and you could go Foles, Fournette. Jeez, Nick. And Conley or Chark, and that's a fine little 3-man stack there. Fournette's going to be involved in the passing game too. I do like Nick Foles this week. It's just I'm not going to get heavily invested in this game. I want nothing to do with Tannehill, nothing to do with any of his pass catchers. So to me, it's like 4 guys are in play in this game, and Fournette's leading the way for me.
I love it. It's Fournette.
All right.
Afternoon hammer.
Any questions? I'll look at this real quick. I think I pretty much answered most of them as I was chatting. Yeah. Winston, Hunt, Lindsey, Evans, Thomas, Landry, Vance, Refrigeration, Taylor Gabriel, Broncos D. I think that's a good tournament lineup. I think you're probably going to want an Atlanta guy in that build, though. So maybe you can get off Michael Thomas, because if Winston and Evans are going off in your lineup, I think that's because Atlanta's scoring a ton of points. So I like this build, but to me, maybe move Thomas down to Julio or Thomas down to Ridley, and you could get Gabriel up to somebody. You can maybe get Fournette in there if you drop Thomas to Ridley and Gabriel up to Fournette. Do something like that. I like the Hunt thing, but Hunt and Landry in the same lineup without Baker, I don't know. Maybe put Baker at quarterback. It's like we could build this lineup so many different ways there, Clayton. I think you got a great little core of Lindsey, Broncos, Evans, and Landry. So maybe just mess around with it and go to like 5 different single entries and kind of just play around with
just build more
different
lineups,
builds.
baby.
Yeah, just use the same core. I like that core a lot, and then kind of just get a couple different variations. All it takes is one of them to go off, and it pays for the other 4 that potentially lose or don't top cash or whatever. But yeah, that is week 12. I'm what my sexy 6 real quick, and we'll get out of here. It's gonna be disgusting, but this is for a GPP. It's going to be Mitch Trubisky. He's making the sexy 6 this week. Saquon Barkley on the other side of that game. Mike Evans, Zach Ertz, Allen Robinson to pair with Trubisky and Saquon, and then Odell Beckham. That is my sexy 6. How about yourself? You got 6 off the top of your head? Are you ready to get out of here?
I'm ready to get out of here, dude. I got to start building lineups, man. The inactive report's coming out. So, guys, check out the inactive reports. Big impacts from injuries. And then, good luck to everybody. Week 12.
All right. Tim Patrick week. Take care, boys.
All right.
Later.